Why do we prepare our clothes, schedule, and work for a new day, yet allow our minds to enter it without any direction at all? It is this lack of direction that lets a single message color the entire morning, a glance unset our confidence, or something that has not even happened to take over our thoughts. We often call this a lack of willpower, oversensitivity, or weakness. But the Stoics were not so quick to judge, because the mind's first reaction is not always within our control. What truly belongs to us is how we examine that reaction and choose what will guide us next. If each day begins with the voice of circumstance, how can we expect to live it according to our own choices? That is why the 7 reminders in this video are not merely words meant to create a fleeting sense of positivity. They are 7 ways to realign the mind, to recognize what lies within our control, to preserve our character under pressure, and to refuse to let outcomes determine our worth. By the end of this journey, you will understand how quietly the morning shapes the rest of the day, while learning to step into each new day with greater clarity, intention, and inner steadiness. Let us begin with the first reminder, where the atmosphere of the day is no longer placed in someone else's hands. Number 1, I set the tone. The Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius used to wake each morning facing a reality most of us can scarcely imagine. He held almost absolute power, yet every day he still had to enter meetings with flatterers, opponents, hot-tempered generals, self-serving officials, and people willing to conceal the truth to protect their own interests. He could easily have used his authority to punish them, silence them, or force their obedience. Yet, precisely because he possessed such power, he understood an even greater danger. If he allowed other people's unpleasantness to determine how he behaved, he would no longer be master of himself, even while remaining master of an empire. And so, before the day began, he wrote to himself, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." At first, those words may sound pessimistic, even somewhat cold. But Marcus was not preparing himself to hate people. He was preparing himself not to be so surprised by their poor behavior that he lost his own character in response. He knew that a disrespectful remark could wound his pride, an unjust decision could ignite his anger, and a betrayal could awaken an immediate desire for revenge. What he did each morning was not predict who would cause trouble, but choose in advance the inner state he wished to preserve when trouble came. That is also the true meaning of the first statement in this journey. I set the tone. I once believed that the atmosphere of a day was determined by whatever happened to me. Only later did I realize that many days were never bad to begin with. They were simply colored by a single moment to which I had given too much power. One morning, I woke up to a brief message from work. "We need to talk." Those 4 words were enough for my mind to write the rest of the story. I assumed I had done something wrong, that the other person was disappointed, and that the conversation would inevitably be tense. As I made coffee, I was not truly standing in the kitchen. I was already living inside a conversation that had not yet happened. When a family member asked me an ordinary question, I answered irritably, then carried that same frustration with me out the door. In the end, the conversation was only about a minor change in the work schedule. What stayed with me was not that my worry had been misplaced, but that I had allowed an ambiguous message to determine how I showed up for people who had nothing to do with it. Perhaps you have known mornings like that as well, when an email, a number in your bank account, a photograph online, or someone's attitude from the day before quietly enters the new day ahead of you. By noon, you feel distracted, irritable, or drained, yet it is difficult to identify the moment when everything began to shift. It often starts earlier than we realize, at the moment the mind takes one small signal and turns it into an explanation for the entire day. Psychology describes this as attentional orientation. When we believe the day will go badly, the mind begins to prioritize details that confirm that belief, while ordinary or positive moments are more easily overlooked. In this sense, the words we speak to ourselves in the morning do more than describe our mood. They quietly direct our attention toward what it should notice. The Stoics called the ability to recognize this process prosoche, the practice of paying attention to the judgments forming within us. Prosoche does not require you to control every thought the moment it appears, because that would be both exhausting and unrealistic. It simply creates a small space in which you can ask, am I responding to what actually happened or to the story I have added to it? Once you notice that space, you do not have to force yourself to feel cheerful, nor do you have to deny your concern. You simply stop allowing that concern to become the spokesperson for the entire day. That is why the statement, "I set the tone," is not a command to remain positive. It is a reminder that the day does not have to take on the exact color of the first thing that happens. In practical terms, before I reach for my phone, I often ask myself what quality I want to bring into the day: clarity, patience, calm, or courage. One word is enough. When tension begins to pull me away, I return to that word and ask whether my present response still reflects the person I chose to be at the beginning of the day. The atmosphere you create at the start cannot guarantee that the day will be easy, but it can prevent you from entering every situation with a mind that has already been taken over. Yet even a grounded beginning cannot ensure that the day will unfold as planned, because life can always interrupt with bad news, a delay, or an unexpected conflict. And when things begin to drift off course, whether you can remain anchored in yourself depends on the second reminder. Number 2, my response is mine. I came to understand this truth rather late. I once believed that when someone treated me poorly, my anger was an inevitable consequence, that after betrayal, becoming cold was unavoidable, that when a day kept going wrong, bringing my frustration home was simply a normal reaction. This way of thinking sounds reasonable because it allows us to believe that our emotions and actions are caused entirely by circumstance. But it also places the most important part of our lives in someone else's hands. All it takes is one careless remark for the direction of our entire day to change. All it takes is one act of unfairness for us to permit ourselves to behave in ways we later struggle to respect. How many times have you been right about what someone else did wrong, yet still regretted the way you responded? The Stoics did not deny anger, fear, or the pain of being hurt, because these first reactions often arise before reason has time to speak. What concerned them was what happened next, when the mind began adding its own commentary to the event. They are deliberately disrespecting me. Everything is always working against me. Or, if I do not fight back immediately, I will be seen as weak. This is where a single event expands into an entire story, and that story begins to govern our actions. Epictetus once wrote, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things." What carries us away is often not only what happened, but also the meaning we immediately assign to it. I once heard about Nathan Cole, a 39-year-old logistics manager living in Albany Park, Chicago, who was known for being so meticulous that he viewed every delay as a sign of irresponsibility. One winter morning, just before an important meeting, he learned that a shipment of essential medical equipment had been held at the warehouse because a new employee had entered the wrong code. The client kept calling. His supervisor was waiting for an explanation, and the delivery window was narrowing by the hour. Nathan's usual response would have been to identify the person responsible, make sure they understood the seriousness of the mistake by raising his voice, and then carry that same anger into every conversation that followed. But this time he paused and separated two things that are often confused. The item code was incorrect. That was a fact. The thought, "This person does not respect my work," was only an interpretation. That pause did not make the shipment appear where it needed to be, but it prevented a technical error from becoming a public exercise in blame. Nathan assigned people to handle the paperwork, called the client to adjust the delivery time, and later spoke privately with the new employee after the situation had stabilized. The problem was still serious, but he no longer turned the incident into a place to unload all his tension. The spark had appeared, but he chose not to pour fuel on it, simply to prove that he had the right to be angry. This is the Stoic dichotomy of control. You do not own the past, other people's reactions, the final outcome, or every external change, but you still own your judgments, intentions, words, and next actions. We often spend enormous amounts of energy arguing with what has already happened, while surrendering the part that still belongs to us to the emotions of the moment. Put plainly, mastering your response does not make you weak. It simply prevents other people from using their lack of self-control to pull you away from your own character. Nor does this mean that you must swallow your anger, remain silent to keep the peace, or pretend that you are not hurt. Suppression is locking the emotion behind a closed door. Mastering your response is inviting it to sit down, allowing it to speak fully, and then refusing to let it sign every decision on your behalf. When you receive a message that disrupts your plans, you can acknowledge your frustration without replying immediately. When you are betrayed, you can set a boundary without turning your pain into a reason to inflict pain in return. When you face financial difficulty, you can look directly at the numbers without concluding that your entire future has collapsed. Each morning, the words, "My response is mine," remind you to preserve a small space between what happens and what you choose to do. Within that space, a single question can be enough to change your direction. Is this response helping me solve the problem or merely helping me release my emotions? The answer is not always comfortable, but it is often honest. When you retain the power to choose your response, you do not make circumstances less difficult, but you prevent them from quietly determining your character. Even so, that power only becomes meaningful when it is grounded in the present, because so many people spend the entire day revising the past in their minds or worrying about a future that has not yet arrived, while leaving the only moment in which action is possible untouched. It is from this point that we need the third reminder. Number 3, this day is my life. Perhaps you have believed, or may still believe, that your real life will begin once things become a little more settled, when work is less chaotic, finances less strained, confidence stronger, and old wounds no longer so painful. The thought is not unreasonable. We all want to feel prepared before living a meaningful life. Yet the more years I move through, the more I recognize an uncomfortable truth. Someday is a convenient place to store the things we are not yet brave enough to do today. An important call is postponed until we feel better. An apology is withheld because the right moment has not arrived, and a meaningful plan remains on paper because we have not yet become good enough to begin. While waiting for life to open at some perfect moment, we are spending that very life 1 hour at a time. Are you living today, or merely using it to wait for another day to begin? The mind is remarkably skilled at pulling us away from where we stand. It can return to the past, reopen a conversation that ended long ago, and use the understanding we have now to judge a choice made when we were younger, afraid, or lacking information. We imagine that constant regret proves we are taking responsibility, but often it is only a form of self-punishment that creates no change. In the opposite direction, the mind rushes into the future, trying to solve an entire week in a single morning, imagining every worst-case scenario and calling it preparation. Both states leave us feeling inwardly busy, yet none of that energy is placed into real action. The past becomes a storage room in which we lock ourselves, while the future resembles a horizon that recedes each time we move toward it. The only ground solid enough to hold our next step is today. The Stoics used memento mori to remind themselves that each person's time is finite, not to inspire fear, but to restore weight to the hours we still possess. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." These words do not ask us to live in haste or turn every day into a race for achievement. They simply cut through a common illusion that we will have countless other chances to live rightly, say what needs to be said, do meaningful work, and be fully present with the person before us. An ordinary day may seem unremarkable on the calendar, but it is still the real material from which your entire life is being formed. Perhaps that is why the story of Chadwick Boseman continues to make so many people pause and reflect. For years, while most of the public remained unaware that he was undergoing cancer treatment, he continued contributing to projects with far-reaching impact, especially through his role as Black Panther, a figure who gave countless children and communities of color the feeling of being seen. The point is not to romanticize suffering or suggest that everyone should continue working through illness, because each person has different limits and circumstances. The deeper value of his story is that he did not wait for a perfect future before offering something meaningful to the present. He could not control how much time remained, but he could still decide where the time he had would be placed. As you hear his story, does something you have postponed for too long come into sharper focus? If it does, you may leave these 3 words in the comments as a gentle reminder to yourself. Live this day. Today is my life does not mean you must complete every plan before the day ends. It simply reminds you that the future is not built by worrying about the entire road, but by tending to the nearest part already within your hands. A large debt begins to be resolved with the first amount set aside. A fractured relationship may begin to heal through one honest conversation. A neglected body may begin to recover with a short walk. A past filled with mistakes cannot be rewritten, but it can be redeemed by refusing to repeat those mistakes in today's choices. True responsibility is not standing forever before a page written badly, but writing the next one with greater awareness. Each morning, the words, "This day is my life," can be anchored in 3 simple things. The single most important task to complete, one person with whom you want to be fully present, and one burden from yesterday that is no longer worth carrying. By the end of the day, the question may not only be how much you accomplished, but whether you were truly present for the part of your life that has just passed. But the present does not contain only beautiful things. When you stop hiding in the past and the future, you meet the difficult parts of life directly. Awkwardness, failure, limitation, and doors that do not open as you hoped. That is why the next reminder does not help you avoid obstacles, but teaches you to see them in an entirely different way. Number 4. The obstacle trains me. Ludwig van Beethoven began losing his hearing at a time when music was not merely his profession, but the deepest expression of who he was. What was slipping away from him was the very faculty the world believed a composer could not live without. He withdrew from social contact out of fear that others would discover how little he could hear, and he fell into despair at the thought that the ability on which his name had been built was slowly disappearing. Yet, during those very years, he continued to compose some of his greatest works. This does not mean illness gave him genius, because suffering does not automatically make a person deeper. It simply shows that when the familiar path was blocked, he refused to let that limitation write the rest of his life. This is where the 4th reminder appears. The obstacle trains me. It does not ask you to love loss, unemployment, heartbreak, or the seasons that make you feel as though everyone else is moving faster. It simply challenges a familiar belief that whenever difficulty appears, it must mean you are heading in the wrong direction. I used to believe this. Whenever I struggled to learn something new, I assumed I lacked ability. Whenever setting a boundary made me feel guilty, I concluded that I had become too harsh. Whenever progress came too slowly, I began to question the entire path. Only later did I understand that many forms of discomfort are not signs telling us to turn back. Sometimes they are simply evidence that we are using a part of ourselves that has not yet been trained for long enough. Modern psychology also helps explain this clearly. The brain tends to favor what is familiar because familiarity requires less energy. So when you change a habit, learn a new skill, or stop living in a way that pleases everyone, awkwardness and uncertainty are likely to arise. That does not necessarily prove that you are doing something wrong. Sometimes it only proves that the old path has been worn too deeply. Is there something in your life that feels difficult not because it is wrong for you, but because you are not yet accustomed to becoming the person it requires? The Stoics called this attitude amor fati, meaning the love of fate. But it should not be understood as glorifying injustice or forcing yourself to feel grateful for suffering. Its more practical meaning is to stop spending additional energy arguing with what has already happened, because the thought, "this should never have happened," does not alter reality. It only prolongs the original pain through resistance. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." An obstacle does not transform itself into a path. The way you use it determines whether it becomes a wall or a place where strength is built. A period of unemployment may reveal how much of your self-worth has been tied to a job title. A divorce may force you to examine boundaries that were ignored for too long. A rejection after months of preparation may show that you placed all your hope behind a single door. Caring for an ill-loved one may remind you that your strength is finite and that asking for help is not weakness. Each difficulty is like a different piece of equipment in a training room. It does not strengthen everything, but it often reaches the part that is weakest. Delay trains patience, failure trains adaptability. Being misunderstood trains the ability to stand firm without endlessly explaining yourself, and slow success trains loyalty to the process. Still, growth does not mean remaining in every situation and calling it resilience. Some places must be left, some relationships need boundaries, and some wounds need healing rather than admiration. Is this difficulty teaching you perseverance, or is it teaching you that the time has come to protect yourself? The ability to distinguish between the two is one of the clearest signs of inner maturity. Each morning when you say, "The obstacle trains me," you do not need to think about your entire life. Simply look at one thing that is troubling you and name the quality it is asking of you: courage, discipline, self-respect, honesty, or the ability to let go. The question worth carrying with you is, if this is a training ground for the mind, what is today's exercise? Moving through a difficult season often leaves us longing for someone to recognize how hard we have tried, as though growth only becomes valuable once it is affirmed by others. Yet that is precisely when we need to remember that some of the deepest changes do not require applause in order to matter. Number 5. My worth needs no witness. Each morning, before stepping into a day filled with scrutiny, judgment, and comparison, try choosing one right thing to do without telling anyone. Finish the work no one will check. Keep a promise only you remember. Decline something that does not align with you without writing a long explanation. Or rest at the right time instead of waiting until exhaustion makes you feel you have finally earned it. The practice is small, but it gives the mind an important experience. What is right still has value even when no one sees it. If no one knew how hard you tried today, would you still want to live by what you believe is right? I ask, because there was a time when I thought I was pursuing my goals, when in truth I was pursuing the approval of others. I took on more work because I wanted to be seen as dependable, over-explained personal choices to avoid being misunderstood, and sometimes remained in a relationship far too long because I did not want anyone to think I had failed. The most exhausting part was not the work itself, but the performance running beneath it all, proving that I was useful, capable, lovable, and no less worthy than anyone else. When we live this way, praise can lift us very quickly, but a little silence can pull our entire sense of self-worth down with it. That need often has deeper roots than we realize. Some people were noticed only when they achieved, and valued only when they were obedient, strong, or useful, so they gradually learned that safety depended on pleasing others. In time, they became a version of themselves that was easy to love, but increasingly unfamiliar to them. Achievement, status, appearance, and attention can all change. When self-worth is built on things that are always shifting, a person is forced to live like a house founded on sand, forever afraid that even a small wave could wash everything away. The Stoics placed value somewhere more difficult to take away, in the quality of character we bring to life, wisdom in how we see, justice in how we treat others, courage when truth must be spoken, and temperance in the desire for recognition were the foundations they valued most. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." A person may be praised and still live without integrity, while another may be misunderstood and yet remain faithful to what is right. The crowd, then, is not always a trustworthy mirror in which to measure our worth. Cato the Younger offers a clear example of this way of living. In Roman political life, he was known for his simplicity, severity, and resistance to corruption, while many around him treated power as a means of gaining advantage and influence. We do not need to idealize every choice Cato made to recognize what is worth reflecting on. He was willing to lose convenience rather than bend himself to the crowd in exchange for acceptance. He did not always win, nor was he always liked, but he continued striving to remain consistent with the principles he believed in. Are you protecting what you truly value, or the image others expect to see in you? My worth needs no witness does not make you indifferent to feedback. It simply helps you hear criticism without collapsing, admit a mistake without seeing yourself as a failure, and leave places that love you only as long as you keep performing an old role. A tree does not need an audience to grow roots. Its strongest parts are always forming beneath the surface, where no one applauds. When you no longer use every success to prove that you are capable, every relationship to prove that you are lovable, and every argument to prove that you are right, you feel less compelled to force life into favorable outcomes merely to protect your image. This is where the sixth reminder begins. Number 6. I release the outcome. The Stoics drew a very clear boundary. Epictetus wrote, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us." Most situations contain three parts: what we want, what we do, and what ultimately happens. The first two may belong largely to us, but the last always passes through timing, circumstance, other people's choices, and variables that make no promises to anyone. You can prepare thoroughly for a meeting, but you cannot control the impression another person forms of you. You can speak the truth with kindness, but you cannot force them to understand it correctly. You can care for your body consistently, but you cannot command it to recover according to your preferred schedule. Are you hurting because you have not done enough, or because life has not returned the outcome you believe you deserve? I remember Olivia Bennett, an MRI technologist living in Albuquerque, who spent years trying every way she knew to rescue her younger brother from gambling. She paid his debts, called his creditors, searched for jobs, monitored every expense, and remained ready to rush to his side whenever he was in trouble, because she believed that if she cared a little more closely, stayed a little more vigilant, and never took her eyes off him, the next relapse would not happen. But whenever her brother lied again, Olivia did not merely feel disappointed. She treated it as proof that she had failed in her role as a sister. What exhausted her was not only his behavior, but the belief that her love should be powerful enough to control another person's life. The turning point came when Olivia began distinguishing between offering support and carrying someone else's burden. She still took her brother to counseling, still helped him find treatment, and still remained present when he genuinely wanted to change, but she stopped paying his debts, stopped shielding him from consequences, and stopped using his choices as a measure of her own character. Her brother's life did not change immediately, but Olivia began sleeping again because she understood that loving someone does not mean becoming the manager of their fate. Are you calling prolonged control an act of love simply because releasing what was never yours to control makes you feel guilty? In Stoic practice, this is the spirit of the reserve clause. I will do this to the best of my ability, provided nothing beyond my control prevents it. This way of thinking does not make a person less committed. It simply places responsibility where it belongs. A gardener can prepare the soil, sow the seeds, water them, and protect the plants, but cannot pull on the stems to force them to grow faster. An archer can train posture, breath, and release, but once the arrow leaves the hand, the wind remains the wind. We suffer most when we confuse devotion with ownership of the outcome. Each morning, the words, "I release the outcome," can be grounded in a very practical way. Write down what belongs to you and what must be left for life to answer. You can submit a strong application, speak sincerely, maintain a healthy habit, or set a clear boundary. Then, instead of continuing to pressure the future into validating your effort, return to the next action that still remains within your hands. If you recognize that you have been carrying an outcome for far too long, leaving a like on this video can serve as a small marker that today you begin placing the burden back where it belongs. Letting go of the outcome is not a retreat from life. It is how you reclaim the energy needed to enter the final reminder with all the agency you still possess. Number 7. I move with purpose. I have had days when I thought I was moving forward simply because my schedule was full, my phone kept lighting up, and many items had been crossed off my to-do list, only to realize that evening that the most important task was still untouched. Most of my time had gone into things that were easy to do, easy to complete, and did not require me to face the fear that truly mattered. That was when I understood that movement and progress are not the same. A car can keep its engine running for a long time without going anywhere, and a day can be filled with activity without bringing you any closer to the person you want to become. Procrastination rarely appears with the obvious face of laziness. More often it comes disguised as preparing a little longer, reading one more article, revising the plan again, answering every email before beginning, or waiting until you feel better before doing the work that requires courage. The brain prefers tasks that offer a quick sense of completion because they allow us to avoid the uncertainty of what truly matters. This is why a person can work very hard and still be avoiding something. Are you using comfortable tasks to protect yourself from one small action that could change the direction of your entire day? This question is not meant to make you feel guilty, but to help you see where your energy is being scattered. Once you recognize this, purposeful action is no longer about doing more, but about returning your attention to the right person, the right task, and the right responsibility that requires your presence. A teacher who takes extra time to explain a lesson in a way a student can understand. Someone who puts down their phone to let a loved one finish speaking. A nurse who checks one more time because a small mistake could affect another person's health. Or a writer who removes a beautiful but dishonest passage. All of them are turning ability into responsibility. In Stoicism, we do not live apart from all connection. We always stand within specific roles, and each role asks what quality we will bring to it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." He was not speaking about creating the appearance of goodness, but about no longer using understanding as a place to hide and beginning to live by what we already know. Purpose, then, does not have to be a grand mission. Sometimes it is simply doing the work before you with fairness, clarity, and seriousness. A compass does not walk the road for the traveler, but it keeps them from going a long way in the wrong direction. Intention works in the same way. It does not replace action, but it gives each action a direction. Each morning, the words, "I move with purpose," can be grounded in 3 specific choices: one task to complete, one quality to bring to it, and one distraction to refuse. If you completed only one thing today, but it was the thing that truly mattered, would you be willing to call the day meaningful? The 6 previous reminders help you reclaim your mind from circumstance, reaction, the past, fear, approval, and outcomes. The final reminder gathers all that freedom into something visible. You do not become a different person through what you understand in the morning, but through what you continue to do afterward, especially during the hours when no one is watching, no one is urging you on, and nothing guarantees that a reward will come. Perhaps real change does not begin with a perfect day, but with the moment you stop handing your entire emotional state over to the first thing that happens. You may still feel anxious, angry, disappointed, or unsettled, but those emotions no longer automatically determine what you say or do next. From that point on, morning is no longer merely the beginning of a day. It becomes the place where you decide the qualities with which you will live it. These 7 reminders do not promise to help you control life. They simply return you to the part that has never truly left your hands: how you see, what you choose, and how you act. When that part is protected through the ordinary days, inner strength is no longer something you need to prove. It reveals itself in the way you live.